have to ask you a very important question. Okay, you got to sit down, Jaden. The rule is we got to stay in our seat, okay? That's the only rule. Okay, I need to ask you a very important question. Have you ever made a bad choice? You have? It's not good, is it? No. Well, I'm going to tell you a true story about a little white chicken whose name is Snowy. And Snowy was one of 6 chickens that Miss Cindy conned Mr. Doug into taking home. He said I could only have 2, but the store said I had to buy 6, so we bought 6. So I take it home, these chickens home, and I had a mommy chicken, and she was sitting on some eggs. So at nighttime, I snuck in, and I put those baby chickens under the mommy. And the next morning, the mommy had taken to most of the chickens. The ones that looked like her babies, the brown ones, she'd taken all of those under her wings. But you know what? Snowy looked different. And so she would peck at Snowy, and she would chase Snowy away. And Snowy had a friend. And Snowy and his friend would go off all by themselves. Well, last week, Snowy decided she was going to make some bad choices. Last night, we have a big yard where the chickens can go, and they have a special cage. Well, the mama chicken tells all the baby chickens, stay right here, don't go over the fence. Has Mommy ever told you to stay in the yard? Don't go in the next yard? Or what if you're at the park and Mom says, stay right here, don't go? Or what about the store? You've been to the store and Mom says, you stay right here? And we sometimes make bad choices. Well, I want to show you Snowy. Snowy made a bad choice last night. It is still alive. Snowy, I better have a towel just in case. I'm a real farm girl. I know what really happens here. Snowy decided she was going to go away from all the other chickens last night. And so she decided she was going to disobey and go over the fence. And she went over the fence, and the big neighbor dog got her in his mouth. Now, what you can't see is I have a bandage on her. She has only one wing that you can see. The other wing, she still has her wing, but it's all bandaged up because Miss Cindy is trying to keep it from getting sick. Now, Snowy made a bad decision, didn't she? She went over the fence where she was not supposed to go. But I want to ask you a question. Do I still love Snowy? Yes. Does your mom and dad still love you even when you disobey? Yes. And that's what Snowy's going to remind us, is that Jesus loves us even when we make bad choices. This world is not a nice place sometimes. And people get hurt, and animals get hurt, and we make bad choices. But you know what? Jesus is coming very soon, and he's going to take us to heaven. And that is the best choice, is to be with him. Do you want to be with Jesus when he comes? I do.
One of the things we all struggle with is, will life continue as it has? Will I always have to struggle with difficulties? And one of the bedrock principles of the gospel is that no matter what you have to deal with, God will help you to get through it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. God will help you to get through it. Have you ever felt that things really aren't getting better? I have a new definition of leap year for you. Leap year is that when last year you celebrated your 39th birthday, and this year you turned 69. That's a leap year, okay? Some of you may have done that, and you go, what just happened? And the body that was once so vibrant and springy and alive, all of a sudden takes a little longer to get going in the morning. And some joints and body parts that you didn't recall ever having, all of a sudden focus your attention for half the day. Things can go from bad to worse so quickly. I remember we lived in Colorado. I was the greater Denver area youth leader, and we bought an old Jeep so we could go four-wheel driving. So the first nice day of spring, I come up with this wonderful idea. Let's go four-wheeling, and let's take the soft top off. Let's take the doors off. Let's just enjoy this thing. So my daughter was small. We wrapped her in a blanket, put her in a bassinet. This was in the days before car chairs. And we put her in there, and we took off. And as the afternoon was wearing on, one of the things I failed to remember is that maybe around 1 o'clock, it's kind of warm outside. But by 4 or 5, it's getting pretty cold. And I have no top, no doors, and it's really getting chilly. So I decided to make matters better, I would take a shortcut home. So I looked at the map and I said, if we take the road all the way around, it's going to take 3 hours to get back. It'll be dark and very, very cold. But if I go up and over the pass, I can cut off that trip in half. We can be home before dark. So we started up this dirt road. Now remember I told you it was early spring. So once we got about a third of the way up, we started to hit some snow on the ground. Well, not bad. After all, I've got a Jeep CJ. So I stopped, got out, locked the front hubs, four-wheel drive. You know, I could go over anything. Put a wall in front of me, over it. So we're going up, and about 200 yards from the top, the track that I was following ended. It was virgin snow with no one having to break the crest of the mountain yet. And I thought, four-wheel drive, challenge. My daughter's getting chilly in the back seat, and my wife obviously is getting very cold, both literally and figuratively. And so I decided that I was going to take the chance and make the break over the hill. And so I got up and almost to the top, and all of a sudden the road dropped out from underneath me. And I'm hanging up on the skid pan of the Jeep with all four wheels spinning in the air. For you see, what I failed to realize is that while there was some melting going on, it actually was running under the snow, washing out the road, but the snow looked nice and steady. There are times when things can go from bad to worse. We are 10 miles down the road that way, and the sun is setting in about an hour. We're standing in snow, and it's 10 miles down this way plus 100 yards to get to the road that way. So I tried breaking branches and jamming them under the tires, hoping to get something to grip on, but the tires would just spin them out, and there I was. What do you do when things go from bad to worse? Do you still believe God's bedrock promise that He'll get you through it? Or do you get discouraged and begin to wonder what just happened? We're going to talk a little bit about a young man named Joseph, a life that went from bad to worse. It was getting dark. I was still trying to figure out some way to get the Jeep unstuck and realized there was no way. We were going to have to walk 10 miles down in the dark, in the snow, without snowsuits or boots. It was not looking better. And as we started to bundle up our little 3-year-old and started to get out of the Jeep and starting to walk down the hill, we did have a path to follow, at least up to 100 feet to the top. There was still the path. All of a sudden, I heard a noise in the distance. And 3 dirt bikes came up. And I looked at them and I said, "What are you doing here?" And of course, they had a better question for me. "What are you doing here?" And I said, "No, seriously, what are you doing here?" And they said, "Well, we're camping down below, and we wanted to see how far up the tracks went to see if anybody got to the top of the mountain. And I guess we discovered no one had yet." And so these 3 men helped me lift and dump, lift and jerk, lift and get that Jeep onto ground so the wheels could take traction. Well, lest you think I was tempted to do the last 100 yards, we turned it around and I came down the mountain. And you think, wow, that's a great story. Well, one problem. It's now dark, and I still got to go all the way around the mountain, a 3-hour drive, with no top and no doors, and it's getting very cold. There are times in our lives when things can overwhelm us, and we can feel very discouraged. Now, you'd hardly think that Joseph would be discouraged. After all, he was Daddy's little boy. You know, I don't know what was going on in Jacob's head, but you don't spoil one child in the extreme over all the others. You don't do birthdays like this. Okay, you just turned a year older. You give your coat to your younger brother, who gives his coat to his younger brother, who gives his coat, you know, the hand-me-down thing? And you hand it all down till you get to Joseph. You say, whoa, time out. Joseph, I got you the nicest jacket. It is brilliant colors. We bought yarn from all the traders coming back and forth. Joseph, don't you love this pretty coat of many colors? Oh, by the way, it's time to go out and watch the sheep. Boys, go out and watch. Oh, no, not you, Joseph. You stay here with Dad. You're going to sleep in your warm bed tonight. We've got a special breakfast of fruit and baked bread tomorrow. Okay, boys, here's your hardtack. Go out and enjoy the sheep tonight. How would you like to live in that family? How would you like to be any brother besides Joseph? You know, I don't know what they were thinking. And then Joseph kind of gets a little bit spoiled with all of this. And so one day he has a dream. And so he goes out to his brothers and he says, "You should have seen my dream last night." Now, these are his big brothers that he looks up to. And he says, "In my dream, I dreamed that every one of you bowed down to me." He never read the book, How to Win Friends and Influence Others. I don't think his brothers liked him very well. But Joseph seemed to be oblivious to this. In fact, you could probably say with some accuracy that Joseph was pretty spoiled. He had the soft life. Things looked good and they were going to get better. No wonder he loved the Lord. It was a good life. And so it was not a surprise when one morning Jacob said to Joseph, "Here's some food. I want you to run out and find your brothers. They're out watching the sheep way up in the north side of our property. And I want you to bring it to them. And you know what? They haven't had fresh food now for 3 days. They'll be so excited to see you, Joseph. You'll be a hero to them. So here, take the food and go up and give it to your brothers." And so Joseph takes off thinking, maybe this is the fulfillment of my dreams. When I bring this food, my brothers will all bow down to me and say, "Thank you, Joseph, for bringing me this food." And as Joseph ran up and saw his brothers whispered to each other, "We've had just about enough of this brat. I think we should teach him a lesson." And when Joseph got there, his brothers jumped on him, grabbed him, ripped that coat of many colors right off of his shoulders, and bound him and threw him in a pit. You see, things can go from good to bad just like that. And here's Joseph in the pit without a coat, tied, and he was not going to get any supper. What just happened? That's the thing about bad things. They come unexpectedly. You never know when something can happen to you that can just turn your world upside down. And so Joseph, with his skin scratching because of the dirt and the needles that are in there, but he can't scratch because his hands are tied, he spent the most uncomfortable night of his life. And I'm sure during the night he prayed, "Lord, why is this happening to me? Lord, let my brothers realize the evil that they're doing and untie me and free me the next day. And Lord, if you'll do that, I won't run home and tell Daddy." Well, what happened the next morning? Things went from bad to worse. See, it's important to understand that the journey of faith is a journey of faith. Things don't always improve. And every one of us here has experienced that in our lives. What has caused your fall into the pit? You see, we don't have to be in a physical pit to be down in the pits. It can be an unexpected diagnosis, an unexpected illness. It can be you go to work one day and all of a sudden the next day you're unemployed. It can be the one that you committed your life to is no longer committed to you. It can be that life savings that you thought would get you through is almost gone. There are many pits in life, and none of them are pleasant. And we will fall into those pits. And when we do, there is a controversy that goes on. For Satan would love you to live the rest of your life in that pit. He loves miserable people. It is a victory for him when our whole life is filled with despair and all we can talk about is how bad our life is. Because he knows when we focus on the problem, we're not focusing on God. And he will do anything to take away our faith that says, God will get me through this. Do you believe God will get you through any difficulty? Some people never come out of the pit. Their life is ruined and they're miserable forever. God is calling you to come out of the pit. But just because you come out of one pit doesn't mean there's not another pit to fall into. And so as Joseph saw his brothers look down